Good morning, students. Welcome. Mr. Charles here. I'll accompany you through the Checkpoint Online session number 5. 1984, a story by George Orwell. Please turn to your course book and let's read together. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. The hallway smelt of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. At one end of it, a colored poster, too large for indoor display, had been tacked to the wall. It depicted simply an enormous face, more than a meter wide, the face of a man about 45, with a heavy black mustache and ruggedly handsome features. Winston made for the stairs. It was no use trying the lift. Even at the best of times, it was seldom working, and at present, the electric current was cut off during daylight hours. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for a hate week. The flat was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39 and had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, the poster with the enormous face gazed from the wall. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you about when you move. Big Brother is watching you, the caption beneath it ran. Inside the flat, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures which had something to do with the production of pig iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plaque, like a dulled mirror, which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. Winston turned the switch and the voice sank somewhat, though the words were still distinguishable. The instrument, the telescreen it was called, could be dimmed, but there was no way of shutting it off completely. He moved over to the window, a smallish, frail figure, the meagerness of his body merely emphasized by the blue overalls, which were the uniform of the party. His hair was fair, his face naturally sanguine, his skin roughened by coarse soap, blunt razor blades, and the cold of the winter that had just ended. Outside, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. Down in the street, little eddies of wind were whirling dust and torn paper into spirals. And though the sun was shining and the sky a harsh blue, there seemed to be no color in anything, except the posters that were plastered everywhere. The black mustachioed face gazed down from every commanding corner. There was no one on the house front, immediately opposite. There was one. There was one poster on the house front immediately opposite. Big Brother is watching you, the caption said, while the dark eyes looked deep into Winston's one. Down at street level, another poster, torn at one corner, flapped fitfully in the wind, alternately covering and uncovering the single word INGSOC. In the far distance, a helicopter skimmed down between the roofs, hovered for an instant like a blue bottle, and darted away again with a curving flight. It was the police patrol snooping into people's windows. The patrols did not matter, however. Only the thought police mattered. Behind Winston's back, the voice from the telescreen was still babbling away about pig iron and the over-fulfillment of the 9th three-year plan. The telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. Any sound that Winston made above the level of a very low whisper would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision which the metal plaque commanded, he would be seen as well as heard. There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment, how often, or what, or on what system the thought police plugged in on any individual wire was guesswork. It was even conceivable that they watched everybody all the time. But at any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You had to live, did live, from habit that became instinct, and the assumption that every sound you made was overheard. And, except in darkness, every movement scrutinized. Let's explain difficult vocabulary together. Difficult vocabulary explained. Let's do part of speech today, along with the synonym and definition, and/or definition. Oblong is a noun, and it is the rectangular. Dulled is an adjective used here, and it means blackened. Frail. Winston was frail. It's an adjective, and it means weak. Sanguine. Also of Winston's description. It's an adjective, and it means red. It means he had a reddish face. Meagerness is a noun, and it's slimness. He was a slim figure. Coarse, the soap he was using was coarse, or the edge of his faces were rough as well, were coarse. Tacked, pinned, put on the wall with a pin, and it's a verb. Varicose, it's a noun, and it is when there's a swelling in the veins in your leg. It is because of standing a lot. Ruggedly, it's an adverb, and it means roughly. Nuzzled, verb, move down and rub. When he was entering the building, or before he was entering the building, he was walking while the wind was hitting his face. He nuzzled his chin down to his breast, which it means that he sunk his head down and put his shin close to his breast and rubbed it. He nuzzled it. Vile is an adjective, and it means strongly unpleasant. Eddies, noun, means whirls, circles. Snooping is a verb that means spying. The police was spying on the people from the helicopter. Swirl, also noun, means movement. Gritty, adjective, strong. Contrived, a verb, deliberately crafted, deliberately put for a certain effect. Ulcer, it's a noun, and it means an open wound. So he had a varicose ulcer above his ankle. He had an open wound of a swelling in vein, or in his veins. Scrutinized is a verb, and it means examined. Text analysis, pages 61 till 63. How is this text set in the future, which is the future in the time which the novel was written in, that is in 1949. The clocks were striking 13. The clock has only 12 numbers, right? When it strikes 13, this is a metaphor that it exceeded the present time, so future. Big Brother is watching you. This is a possible reference to the Uncle Sam figure that the US Army used to put around for their regular citizens to try to involve them into conscription. The caption read at the bottom, nearest recruiting station is waiting for you. The telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. This is also a reference that exists now in the future, in that story's future, in that time's future. And this receiving and transmitting simultaneously first was made available to public in 2003. And the company was bought by eBay at the beginning. The thought police, the police that controls your thoughts, capital T, capital P. How does life seem unsatisfactory? Why does life seem bad, or how does it seem bad in this introduction, in this preface? There's so much litter on the street that he sees from his window. There is often no electricity, as mentioned. Everything looks dreary and colorless, even though the sky was blue and the sun was rising, right? Products are of very low quality inside his house. And there is no privacy. The TV and its commercials, or the transmitting and receiving the telescreen, and the helicopter that was monitoring everywhere, and the feeling that Winston had that he was being watched constantly. What are the references to the five senses in these paragraphs? The reference to sight is the words, or are the words bright, enormous face, the eyes that follow you, dulled mirror, blue overalls, torn paper, sun was shining, harsh blue, no color, black mustachioed face, dark eyes, and a helicopter. All of these can be sensed through the eyes. Some of these can be sensed with other senses, such as the helicopter. The helicopter, you can recognize it through your ears as well, right? Through hearing it. Sound, clocks were striking, fruity voice, babbling, and whisper. All these words are sensed with ears. Taste. You had the taste of boiled cabbage when he was entering the mansions, gritty and fruity. The sense of touch, the words cold, wind, gritty dust, coarse soap, and blunt razor blades. Smell, the boiled cabbage and old rag mats as well. What are the expectations created by the setting? After we read the setting, what do you expect the novel to continue? How do you expect it to continue? This creates the expectation that this will not be a cheerful novel, and that things will not turn out well for the main character, who seems isolated and is already being watched. The setting is described as futile of leaving, futile of trying to rebel against it, or against the ruling government, the police, who are watching you constantly, and they know your every move, and they have the power. So you're already set in a gloomy tone, in a bad mood, that our main character is struggling. What is the between the lines meaning of the name Big Brother? What are the connotations of such a name? How would you break it down, deconstruct it? And how does his description affect readers' conception of him? How do you conceive him after hearing his description or reading about his description? There's an alliteration, BB sounds, Big Brother. The alliteration in his name is meant to combine the idea of being looked after by someone older who is close relative and cares about you. So big, it makes you feel comfortable that he's an older figure that knows better, that looks after you. And brother is a relative. It's someone you could trust. However, after people have read the novel, it has, since this novel was written, become synonymous with being monitored in a sinister way. The Big Brother is watching you poster that we've seen a couple of slides ago was supposed to be, in the minds of everybody, a big brother. So it's a helpful figure, and it's a comforting statement. But after people read the novel, it turned out to be something sinister, something evil. His omnipresent face is huge. Omnipresent means it exists everywhere, every time. It's larger than people. It's described as 1 meter in width, with a military-style mustache, so that those whose world is dominated by these posters with the watching eyes feel that he can see everything they do and will punish them for it. He represents the concept of dictatorship, that the governments are watching you, whatever you do, and they control whatever you do, and they direct you to think and act, work, live the way they want you to. Some people argue that this gentleman, Mark Zuckerberg, this picture is an analogy to the Big Brother is watching you, George Orwell copy. And it is argued that Mark Zuckerberg, through Facebook, is doing the same as that Big Brother was doing. Basically controlling what you think, controlling how you act, what you say, how you behave, what you see, even through the ads, without him telling you that I'm controlling this. So, yeah, analogy. What are the pieces of evidence about Winston Smith's way of life that is comfortless and monitored? Boiled cabbages. This is the least delicious food that you want to eat after a long day of work. And this is what he had to eat. No comfort. Seldom working. He was rarely working. Currents were cut off. Electricity was off. The power was off. Varicose ulcer. He had a health condition, that kept him from going smoothly up the stairs into his flat. He had to take breaks, if you remember, at every flight of stairs. The eyes follow you about. This is a monitored example. No way of shutting it off, the telescreen. The cold. It was really cold the whole time. Comfortless. No color in anything. Comfortless again. Snooping into people's windows, the helicopters, police. What role do you think Winston will play on the coming pages? Winston seems to dislike agreeing with rules and to have rebellious tendencies, as shown by his turning down the telescreen. He dimmed it down. The phenomena of hate week that was referenced. That's why electricity was off most of the time, because during daylight, because the companies were participating the hate week. This suggests that there's a state, and the state has enemies, and he may become one of them. He knows who his enemy is. It's the thought police, the police that controls your thoughts. And he may therefore want to join others in resisting the sole ruling state, the totalitarian state, we call it. He is unwillingly to live in. However, he cannot stop the wind getting in, or the screen talking, or the eyes watching. These are all indications from the writer to us that he's unlikely to be successful in his efforts to bring down the government with the resistance. What is an anti-hero or an anti-hero? Novels and movies are used to the idea of a hero or a heroine, a person of absolute courage, intelligence, or beauty that will ultimately cause their obvious victory over any obstacle. George Orwell's main character is an anti-hero, a term that belongs to nowadays to modern fiction. They do not possess the traditional hero's super qualities, but have enough for the reader to relate or sympathize with them. Anti-heroes are usually helpless and overpowered, and often seen as outcasts of society because they cannot get along with the norms of that society. They struggle and endure a great deal throughout the work, and not always are they able to overcome their tiredness. This makes the reader relate to the idea of their existence a lot more than the traditional heroes. Look at these two pictures. This is Henry Cavill, the actor playing the role of Superman, versus Joaquin Phoenix playing the role of Joker, the movie we talked about last session. Between these two, which one can you relate to more that it could actually exist in your society? Is it a person that has superpowers of not dying, of resisting bullets, of having a laser shot out of their eyes? Or of a figure that actually struggles in society, that has a medical condition, that feels an outcast of the people around him because he cannot cope with them? Henry Cavill in Superman symbolizes a hero, traditional hero. Joaquin Phoenix in the Joker represents an anti-hero, a modern day hero. Writing task. Write a paragraph describing Winston. Use the details from the passage we've just read, pages 62 and 63. We're done for today. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and keep up the good work.